Do unto others as they would do unto you is not a mode of morality that our pre-Christian ancestors agreed with. After all, it is a uniquely Christian moral derived from the Gospels of Matthew 7:12 and Luke 6:31. Throughout history, witches were feared because they had equal power to bless or to curse. This abruptly changed in the late 20th century as the Wiccan community began to systematically rewrite the collective history and morality of witchcraft to suit the agenda of mainstream acceptance. In Arthurian legend, the wizard Merlin is prompted by Uther Pendragon to make Igraine believe that Uther is her husband. Reluctantly, Merlin consults his prophecy and foresees only a slightly better future for all the effort. If he assists Uther, Britain will experience a short-lived golden era before being plunged back into the chaos of the Dark Ages. But if he refuses, Britain will remain stagnant for centuries. Neither option was significantly better for Britain in the long term, but the birth of Arthur would at least pave the way for hope. Merlin eventually makes a judgment call to give Uther what he wants. Considering what was about to happen to Igraine, Merlin was clearly not bound to any sort of moral ethic, nor did he fear any repercussions for his actions. His decision was based on instinct and what he thought would be the better of two undesirable outcomes. The teachings of Wicca are a far cry from Camelot. Wiccan authors have imposed a distinctly Christian morality on their practices, which they continue to identify as witchcraft. They suppose there is always a right and proper course of action for every circumstance, and that the world, like their magic, can be divided into only black and white. Real magic is never so simple. There is no such thing as black magic or white magic. There is only magic itself, and everything we do in magic, like most things in life, is a judgment call. The moral standard of Wicca, called the Wiccan Rede, states, "E'en it harm none, do what thou will." This closely resembles the saying of Jesus, "Do unto others as you would have them do unto you." The source of the Rede is a statement made by Aleister Crowley to define the cardinal rule of Thelema, his unique magical system. What he actually said was, "Do what thou will shall be the whole of the law." This was not intended as a moral directive. Anyone who has read Crowley understands that "do what thou will" means to do only that which is one's true will, or higher purpose in life, and to let nothing stand in the way of doing so. In other words, to seek one's true purpose and to follow it. Those familiar with Crowley also know that morality was never a concern of his. Regardless, Wiccan writer and elder Doreen Valiente reinterpreted Crowley's words as a moral imperative and made it the golden rule of Wicca. The great irony is that Crowley was trying to break free from our dainty modern conventions when he made his original statement, yet Valiente overturned him for the sake of making Wicca appear less threatening to mainstream society. In other words, making it seem more Christian. The Wiccan threefold law states that anything one does in magic is returned to oneself 3 times more potent. This was intended to frighten Wiccans from doing anything that would reflect poorly on the movement, and to assure the Christian majority that witches were never a true threat. The source of the threefold law is derived from a theme which appears in Cornelius Agrippa's The 3 Books of Occult Philosophy, wherein Agrippa tries to rationalize the occult with the Christian doctrine of the Holy Trinity. The founder of Wicca, Gerald Gardner, adapted the idea for his own fantasy fiction novels. Whether or not Gardner intended for his fiction to reflect the actual tenets of Wicca remains disputed. Modern witchcraft does not necessarily center on any particular moral idea. It is up to the individual to decide what sort of behavior best suits him or her under various circumstances. This means that real witches are as apt to curse as they are to heal, and there's nothing morally improper in doing so when the cause is considered just. The truth of witchcraft is that, in life, someone must have the upper hand in all things, and what is good for one is often bad for another. This is the way of nature. For example, when a wolf is hungry, that is bad. So it hunts, and that is good. The wolf finds a rabbit. That is good for the wolf, but bad for the rabbit. Such is the way of the world. Magic is no different. Being the wolf is not inherently bad or evil, and this is one of the truths which the devil represented to ancient witches. But to think one is always the wolf or always the rabbit is ignorance. Such are relative to any given situation, as expressed in the story of Gwayan and Caradwyn. When a witch casts a spell to land a new job, she takes the opportunity away from another candidate. Wiccans would say this harms none, but how so if the other candidate loses the opportunity? The very idea that anyone can do magic that is always good and never produces negative effects is ignorant fantasy. In life there must be winners and losers. No one exists in a vacuum wherein one's own actions can never affect another, for better or worse. Real witches are not bound to some invented code of morality. They do what must be done to get what they desire. Every decision is a judgment call that is neither right nor wrong. It is simply appropriate to the given situation. Certainly, the medieval witches better understood the Hebrew rule, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. This begs the question, if we cannot do magic without the possibility of causing harm, is it safe to do at all? The answer is simple. Everything we do in life involves risk to ourselves and to others, yet we manage to get up in the morning and go about our days unhindered. We make decisions all the time, and we live with the repercussions, and magic is no different. Let no true witch pretend otherwise.